programma. Na beelden uit de Laurenskerk ook nog een interview wat Ed Elkin met mij had in Noordwijkerhout. Dat was bedoeld voor de televisie op Hawaii. Maar we dachten het is toch wel aardig om u te laten zien om die hele vredesconferentie een beetje in perspectief te zien.
Hello, this is Ed Elkin from Holland, interviewing Luc Sala at the World Conference on Religion and Peace, which is the follow-up to the Hague Appeal for Peace that we both attended. Now, Luc, would you give us your impression of the conference last week, and what do you anticipate will be happening here?
Well, the Appeal for Peace in The Hague was impressive. 7,000 people, in all colors, in all cultures, and with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of projects. I was amazed, especially from the hall, the Staten Hall that was filled with all these little stalls, how many people are actively involved in peace.
What was the most impressive thing about it for you, and what do you think was missing?
Most impressive was for me that there were so many people, and that they all came with their individual thing. What was missing was that there was so many people and they all came with their individual thing. So there were at least 150 or 200 organizations, each with their national or religious angle. But there were all different angles. And so I hope that what comes out of this conference is that all those organizations talk a little bit more among themselves about what they're doing. To give you an idea, I've seen many organizations from Africa who were talking about peace in Africa and the role of the women and things like that. There were so many that a united African organization could help that. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, the multitude of organizations, the multitude of opinions, that's the great thing. Mm-hmm. It shows it's a rainbow of emotions and cultures being concerned with peace. But a little bit more cooperation, yeah.
What I heard from others and saw myself was that sometimes the groups met with the people in their own group. Kashmiris meeting Kashmiris, Japanese meeting Japanese, and perhaps there wasn't enough cross-group conversation. I don't know if you noticed any of that.
Well, what I noticed is that, for instance, an organization that you belong to, the people from the Millennium groups in the States, that over the past year had really set up networks with over the internet, and people know each other from networks over the internet. Now saw each other sometimes for the first time in Rio, and they said, "Hey, yes, I know you because we've spoken to each other through email and other ways, or even over the phone." So there was part of it that you saw those groups forming, and I hope when they go back to the States or wherever they're coming from, that they have learned something and that they have connected. Yes, that to make that bridge to other things. I must say, I had a feeling that only the media were really doing that. Like what we were going out there to really try to find bridges, to make connections between purposes. I mean, what's the thing that amazed me? There was a lot of people, for instance, from Japan, anti-nuclear groups. Hiroshima, Kobe, they don't want nuclear powered boats in their ships in their harbor. Lots of people from Japan, and they were very active, and they were, many of them didn't speak English, but they were there. I mean, you could feel that they were there and they were motivated. Now, to connect those people with, say, the peace movement in Holland is an important thing, but it's not an easy task because they came, you see, it's like little religions within the wider faith of peace.
Well, one solution to that I found was through the Millennial People's Assembly Network, which is calling for global assemblies in regional areas and then coming together again next spring in Samoa, actually, it turns out. And so creating a global network that is made up of individual communities worldwide is one way of bridging the gaps, I believe.
But you saw the personal influence there of what was it? Pita
Yes.
Le Tagaloa from Samoa. The man made a personal impression. He came across very strong. We interviewed him. And but he was strong.
Yes,
and
he
he was also an economist. He was a member of parliament, and you could feel this man can do some things.
Absolutely.
Yes, he was there, and he said, "We're going to make this happen." Too few people were there with that attitude. Too many people were there proclaiming their own whatever it was. I haven't met anybody who hasn't had this organization or that, Rainbow this or Millennium, whatever. Everybody has their own groups and organization. But this guy came there with some personal power, really. And that I felt activism is good. But if it lacks this basic grounded thing, hey, we are here to make it happen.
Now, as a Dutch national, you made some comments earlier, which I invite you to repeat, about the position of the foreign minister and where...
Yes. Of course, the war in Kosovo and the war in Yugoslavia was very much on everybody's mind. And then you see the Prime Minister of Holland, Mr. Kok, standing there and say, yeah, this is a difficult position. And he got a big response from the people because they thought this was true what he was saying. On the other hand, you have to know that the man in his own country seemingly is what we call a technocrat. The people that run a country without much human influence, contact. Yes, he runs the agenda of the cabinet, but he doesn't personally add things to it, and that's one of the problems in Holland at the moment. And that's what I see a lot. People stand up and they hold beautiful talks, but look at what they have done. Mr. Kok was one of the people. If he would have said no bombing with NATO, there wouldn't have been any bombing.
Acknowledging, as I think you do, the power of media, or the potential power of media, if you were the Minister of Information for the Netherlands, what would you have done? What would you be doing?
In the Kosovo crisis?
Now and in general.
I would like to know what force the US and England and Germany have put on these people. You have to be fair. We live in an interrelated world. And if Mr. Kok says in a meeting of the NATO, well, I don't really think that we should do this, as many Dutch people say, and I don't know whether he said it, but incredible pressure would be put on him by the states and whatever. They would say yes, but then we stop investment or we don't give you this. You know, we were very dependent on Germany, England, and the states. So maybe some pressure was put on him. But I think that he should have really asked for the same information that now comes up, and that is this a sensible way to make war? Is bombing a nation into whatever in destiny? I mean, what we're doing is crazy. We're bombing away schools, hospitals, electricity plants, all factories, whatever looks like a something that could produce anything. We're bombing it away. The bridges, the Danube that goes to the area there, all the bridges are. There is something going on in the mind of the NATO that I don't understand. We all have to repair that. But not only do we have to repair it, but for 20, 40, 50, 60 years, the kids in Serbia will, in the middle of the night, and even when they're old people, will wake up and think, oh, the bombs are coming, because
it's true.
It's true. There is actual bombing. There's actual, alarms going on. We know that from Second World War, people are still afraid. You know, they wake up in the middle of the night, they have this traumatic experience. We are forcing that upon a nation of Serbian people. And then in 20 years or 40 years, we're going to complain that they start another war? If we make a nation of traumatized people, expect it to come back. If you sow war, and you get war back, yeah?
Okay, so in terms of what you're planning to do now, could you say something about the transition from Mister Media to your new organization called Eurocolor, or what is it being called now?
You see, coming back to this peace conference, I went there with this idea what can actually be done. I mean, what is the secret formula to transform the world? Now, money might be, and all these talks and beautiful singing and all that helps. But my belief is that if we can do something with media, and I call it the micro media, we have the trend where CNN calls the shots. You know, if CNN shows this, then the world believes it. In the Iraqi, the first Gulf War, we believed that the whole of the capital there was bombed because a guy was shouting out of the window, "Hey!" Later on, it turned out that wasn't true. So there you have the mega media, the big organizations. They form, so to speak, our belief system. But apart from that, I believe there's a countervailing force. There's a balancing force, and this is what I call micromedia. If the same media technology that's used by CNN and the big guys is used by small people,
Like yourself?
like myself, or like the people that I'm trying to accommodate, if the people that came to The Hague with their story about the role of women in Africa, about the stupidity where DDT is still produced in Africa, and you know, and the environment, all those things. If those people had a way of getting the message out, and that's a simple message, we don't need Nobel Prize winners to get the message. We need the real people out there who say we do have water but we don't have this, or this is happening. So if we allow people to speak their heart and get it across. So my idea about Mister was to prove that it's possible to make a low budget and still acceptable quality community channel, because that's what we are. We are trying to allow people to say what they want. Now we want to expand it to Kleurnet, to Kleurnet, a 24-hour channel where even more people and more cultures can say what they want. Yes, with limitations on politics, because otherwise we would have, you know, one faction saying kill the others. But within the structure of the law, to allow people to say what they want, have a voice, and even if they say something that other people don't like, which happens, because people are still, you know, there's a war in their minds sometimes. But allow that. It's better that someone says, "I hate those guys because that and that." At least it's out there and we can respond to it and say, "Yeah, it's true," or it's not true. But denying people access, and that is the danger of the technology. We are talking about internet, and at one time there was a promise it would be democratic and everybody could say their thing, and now we're all becoming AOL or AT&T or Microsoft Networks. You see the monopolies growing, and people like AOL or AT&T are gonna maybe not censor, but at least monitor what's happening on the internet, so the freedom goes. So I think freedom is very essential. Freedom to think and freedom to express is very essential for people's well-being in any context, and that the technology allows us to do that cheaply and effectively.
Well, the new technology is going to allow full streaming video and then full video on websites.
Yeah, if you have the bandwidth, huh?
That's coming in the future.
Yeah, but that's an idea that people are going to be interactive, and I've been involved in the internet for quite a while. I had the first internet cafe in Amsterdam. I don't believe in the interactive nature of people. When we say they're interactive, we most of the time mean they're zapping, and zapping is a negative choice. They're watching television and say, "I don't like this, so I'm moving away." It's not a positive choice. I want to see. Sometimes you do that. I want to see the BBC, but most of the time I say, "Oh, I don't like this. I go away." So interactive communications through the internet, I think, is a dream that's not really true. People are, some of us are interactive, and a journalist more so can be interactive, and it's great that at some time we can do that in school, for universities. Great, but
video conferencing is an example of interactive use of.
Yeah, but that's nice. But since the late 70s, we've had video conferencing, and it never amounted to anything.
It's being used extensively, I know, in the Hawaiian Islands, so that people on different islands can essentially see each other and hear each other. And Robert Theobald is using video conferencing for the new Community Resiliency Network with 100 downlink sites, and increasingly interactive.
Yeah, but, you know, in Henry Dakin in San Francisco with the garage there, for 10 years he had this link with Moscow and whatever. You could see each other. It never amounted to anything, because it seems that we're not ready. Our mind, our system is not ready to seeing each other and communicating. We haven't learned to cope with that technology. And to tell you the truth, the commercial results of, say, Intel, that's pushing that for years, it hasn't really taken off.
I think that's possibly because the technology hasn't developed the state of the art yet to enable that to be possible. So we
What do you mean? In '79, I was working
still
for Philips. We
premature.
had full bandwidth. So when you talk about technology, we had full bandwidth video connections, and it didn't work. The top managers of Philips could talk to each other, and I'm not talking about limited whatever. No. Perfect broadcast for a video, because they were making the broadcast cameras and they had it.
Right.
And they only used it after a while to impress customers. They wouldn't use it to communicate. They would rather get in the car, drive an hour from where I was, Hilversum, to Eindhoven, because there's so much more involved. In that hour in the car, they could look through their notes, prepare, then had the meeting with the other top manager, and then go back. And if they were doing it in their office, it would be, in between everything.
Right.
So for some reasons, they just didn't do it. And it's not. It was free. It was there. The bandwidth was there all the time. They were supposed to use it, and they didn't. And that's a thing.
Maybe we need to learn how. Maybe we need to learn how to use it more effectively, and that could be part of an educational system in how to use multimedia communication.
That's fine, but then it has to be proven that in the end it works. And so far, there has not been a commercial success or test cases. They've tried it in court cases in the States, and you see it more and more because it becomes less expensive. But I don't think that that's the technology. I believe in enabling technology on the level that we can do, which means if internet and the connections allow us to have schools talk to each other about sensible subjects, then it works. But
sensible subjects defined as, for example...
What do you share? I heard a story about schools in Ireland and schools in South Africa talking about cross-community communications, the one group, the blacks, the whites, or whatever, or cross-faith communications. They had something to talk about. But I have been on many, many international video conferences where we only talked about how great the technology was, and how's the weather? We had nothing to talk about.
So if you were to teach how to use this medium more effectively, what would that look like?
That's what we're doing. And that's what we're trying. We are using technology that is off-the-shelf consumer stuff, but happens to become very close to broadcast quality and develop systems and ways and routines that people can do what we're doing now and have a reasonable program. And then, yes, of course, it is talking heads and it is a limited talk television. It's like radio and television. But it opens opportunities and it's not easy. If you give people a camera, the first thing they're going to do, they're going to be artistic and they're going to make this and zoom in and do that. And it takes a long time, and I'm talking months or years for people to train to the point where they realize, get that thing there, focus, switch it on, keep it sharp, hold the mic, and don't do anything else. Make the story come across and not the beautiful image. And if then later on you want to add, I don't know, us walking outside of the beautiful environment of this Leeuwenhorst place or some shots from, that's fine, that's easy.
That's your establishing shot.
Yes, so what I'm saying is, let's go back to the basics of what community television or multicultural television is on its lowest level, which is an image and a message. And we have gone too far in the form factor in computers, for instance. You use a computer, I'm sure, and you're doing, and you write on a computer. Now, I use WordStar 3.0, which is 10 years old or 12 years old, and happened to be around as a CPM version. WordStar was from, I think, 76, yeah? It was in CPM form. It hasn't changed much in the form I use it now. It still works, but you probably use Word 9 or 8 or whatever. Great, wow, you have all this functionality, which you don't use, because what you use is typing text and emailing it, which you could do with the most simple editor. That's the same thing what we think, that television should have all these effects and running this and that and that. I mean, no, keep it simple. If you want to convey the message that a certain group of people in Africa has a problem, and they're asking for help, or they have a product, which is even more important. They say, okay, this is what we make in our village. Yeah. Is there a way that you would be interested? Yes? Or would you like to come and have a holiday with us? I mean, it's just a great way of helping each other these days is promoting tourism. Not to harm the environment. But some countries really thrive with tourism. So show how it is. I once was in Bulgaria, and I spoke with the youth people, the youth movement there, in their post-communist area, and they still had hundreds of thousands of youth. and they wanted to go on the internet, and it felt like they wanted to make the internet the goal of their effort. And I said, that's crazy. Nobody believes in technology for technology, but make it something. And I gave them this suggestion. I said, Bulgaria would really benefit from, say, 100,000 or 200,000 tourists extra every year, or 2 million tourists.
Yes.
Use that internet for your 600,000 young kids. Each make a connection with one family, with one person in the West, and try to tell them about how it is, and to facilitate that family taking a holiday trip to Belgrade, or sorry, to Sofia, or whatever.
Talk with the manifestation.
And then talk about real things. Talk about when you come here, you have to take tram 5, and you have to bring so many dollars for the house, and we have set up with the neighbors, and you can eat there, and all those practical things. And then the communication would be about something. Yeah. So I said,
would this
the
be
nation.
of interest to the average viewer because it goes into so much detail, or like it's a slice of life to go into that much detail?
No. It's detail, but every country in the world, if they would use the internet in such a way, in a practical way, to promote tourism on a one-to-one basis, as I said, 200,000 extra visitors to Bulgaria would change the nation. Yes.
I think so.
It would bring in money, people, and communications, and maybe people from the West. But why is it? It can be anybody from Japan. So let's use that technology in a very down-to-earth, simple way, and not think about streaming media, this and that and that. Man, that costs bandwidth, that costs money. They don't have it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So to go back.
Let me give this one example. It was very good. Someone spoke about children being interviewed on problems. Now, if you're hungry, the question was, if you're hungry, what is the reason for it? In the West, we would say, so if you live somewhere and you're hungry, what is the reason? In the West, we would say, we have no money. We need money. But it turns out that in Africa, children would say, you have no neighbors. That the reason for being hungry is you have no neighbors. You see the difference in total difference in attitude. Yeah?
Fair to suggest that you envision a positive outcome from focusing media attention on this conference on religion and peace by bringing out to the world at large the positive effects that a unification of religions could bring about.
Not a unification, because we're not talking about unification. You should not try to unify. You have to recognize that the core message is the same. And if we agree on all that, and then still do whatever the Jewish guy wants or the Christian guy, let him do his rituals, whatever. They all fit in a certain pattern. It's great. I'm admiring the rituals. They might not be mine, but there's great wisdom in that and befitting. So don't judge, and that's the basic story. Don't judge. And if the world could learn not to judge at what we're doing, we're judging now on the war here and the war there. And the basic thing is, what do you yourself? Would I go to war? No. Do I want peace? Yes. Let's start it now.
What's your final message to the audience?
Shake hands.
Great. Luc, I think this is a great idea that you're going to be here, and we'll see what comes of it. We'll see what comes of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha.